Welcome to this explainer. Today I'm taking you directly into my own mythic, internal monologue. You are going to witness my absolute breaking point, a profound psychological deconstruction and a violent alchemical rebirth. I want you to feel the heavy boots I wore, dragging the immense weight of my own godhood across a dying ash-gray world. I was the architect of law, and my own creation was suffocating me. My mind is a tomb of stone, freezing under the weight of 1,000 legislated tomorrows. Man, let's just dive right into that. You know that feeling of sheer, bone-deep existential exhaustion? That was me. I felt the crushing burden of being the architect of law. Every single rune I carved, every boundary I set up just to maintain order, had completely drained my life force. I hadn't built a kingdom. I had built a hyper-rationalized tomb for myself. I was literally freezing under the weight of all those perfectly calculated tomorrows, leaning on my own laws like a broken crutch. Section 1. The Mirror of Masonry. In my absolute despair, I wandered into a castle corridor and stopped in front of this ancient psychological mirror. And as my single heavy eye caught the reflection, the whole visual style of my world just shifted. My rigid, monochromatic stone reality was suddenly disrupted. The silver surface of the glass rippled and started bleeding into this deep, volatile, starless sapphire blue. It was like the strict laws of my reality were being invaded by a totally fluid, lawless color. And what I was seeing perfectly illustrates the sociological concept of the iron cage, a term originally coined by Max Weber. I didn't see my grand halls of Valhalla in that reflection. I saw my throne room transformed into stacks of brittle, yellowed contracts. I saw myself trapped inside an elaborate gilded birdcage made out of my own legislated decrees. I had trapped myself in a hyper-rationalized existence where actual meaning had been entirely strangled by efficiency and this desperate, exhausting need for absolute predictability. Section 2. The Cage of Echoes. And from that bleeding blue distortion, stepping right out of the glass, was the sapphire jester, wearing robes of razor-sharp light. He wasn't some outside demon, you see. He was the personification of my own suppressed shadow, and the mirror just echoed with his voice, mocking me from the inside. Look at you, old king of masonry, leaning on your laws like a broken crutch. Aren't you tired of holding up the sky? How does it feel to be the only prisoner who holds the key, but is too afraid of the draft to open the door? He wasn't offering me a battle, he was offering a narcotic. Pointing to this yawning, starless blue void, he invited me to surrender my name to a quiet, sapphire sleep. The fall is already here, he whispered. I call it the beautiful relief of letting go. He argued that true grace isn't about this constant upward struggle. It's a peaceful descent into a void where there are no faces left to confirm and absolutely no kingdoms left to hold up. And let me tell you, for a completely burned out God, that was a terrifyingly seductive thought. Section 3. The Black Sun Rising. Staring into that glass, I watched my golden crown melt down into a crown of thorns. My single eye started to bleed at this thick, ink-like darkness. What I was witnessing was my own alchemical negretto, the blackening stage. The old material of my hyperlogical mind, my ledgers, my absolute need for control, it all had to be broken down and dissolved. The jester whispered for me to let the black sun rise, because you simply cannot build the crucible of the new self until the old rigid cage has completely rotted away. But right there, at the very edge, is where I made a choice that changed everything. Faced with the absolute death of my soul, my dormant spirit of creation violently rebelled. I refused the cold numbness of the void. My eye flared into this blinding crimson-white light. I decided that if my world was going to end, I was not going to simply fade away into the blue sleep. I would be the one who breaks it. Section 4. The Sacrament of Ingestion. With an explosive burst of energy, I slammed my heavy wooden staff down. Crack! The impact shattered the jester's pristine mask right down the center, proving he was just a parasite feeding on my weariness. But I didn't just walk away. That blue sapphire smoke rising off his shattered shards, I forcefully inhaled it. I could literally feel veins of crimson-white fire pulsing beneath my stone-like skin. I was performing an act of psychic cannibalism. And then, a profound psychological inversion took place. The jester's voice echoed one last time, but not as a separate entity. It came from deep within my own chest. Don't just break me, Wodan. Drink me. Stop projecting your exhaustion onto me and start using it as fuel. I suddenly realized that to survive, I had to consume the raw, unlegislated chaos I had previously kept locked outside my city gates. I took the very exhaustion that was killing me, and I metabolized it into the fire of survival. This explosive internalization triggered what we call WUT, a sacred alchemical frenzy within me. Now, this wasn't mindless rage. It was a managed psychological explosion that violently inverted my death instinct right back into raw life energy. My refusal to succumb sparked this massive vortex of blood red and blinding gold brushstrokes, tearing right through that cold sapphire background. I was transforming from static stone into pure kinetic potential. Let's map out exactly how this built into a complete psychological transmutation. Think about these 3 steps of my evolution. First, I shifted from the architect, relying on static stone, to the crucible, becoming the internal vessel holding the fire. Second, I moved from shadow projection to psychic ingestion, breathing that chaos in as fuel. And finally, I transitioned from the iron cage of hyper-rational bureaucracy to the fluid abyss, realizing that order is artificial but chaos is fertile. Section 5. The Master of the Abyss. The heavy storm clouds burned away, and I was no longer walking a paved road of cracked stone. I was balancing on the razor's edge of the abyss itself. Think about the stark contrast between these 2 states of being. The old architect of law was defined by rigid, static stone architecture and a deep-seated fear of chaos. But the new entity, the dancing star, a fluid vortex of blinding gold and blood-red energy. I operate on fluid, sovereign potential now, embracing the flux. And I don't fall into the void because I realize the abyss is made of the exact same stardust that I am. So, the crucial point of this entire explainer is this magnificent roar of my own ontological revolt. I will not be stone. If my world must break, I will be the one who breaks it. This was my ecstatic realization. I no longer needed to build cages to feel safe. I claimed my absolute sovereign power, choosing becoming over being. I smashed the illusion of static control because I knew the true terror wasn't that the universe is chaotic, but that I had wasted my life pretending it wasn't. The final image I leave you with is the mirror, completely shattered on the corridor floor. The porcelain mask was broken, and I stood amidst the smoking ruins, my posture upright, proud, and unbroken. My face was exposed to a newly born golden dawn, reflecting upward from the glass shards. I smiled a dangerous, triumphant grin. I had crossed the abyss. I had birthed the storm from the ashes of my own rigidity. Which leaves you with this final provocative thought to take away today. What happens when you stop trying to build cages to control your world and instead allow yourself to become the storm? My journey shows that true peace isn't the absence of chaos, but absolute mastery over the conflict within yourself. When you stop fearing the void and start breathing it in, you just might find the dancing star waiting inside you.